Let's go through a really quick exercise of adding the current user's or the device's location to the map so that we can see it on the map when we want to add a location to a task. Maybe we're nearby and we can just do it now or whatever, but it is at least interesting to see. So to do that, we have to actually have a location, and when the emulator starts out, it doesn't have a location, and that's a good way to talk about the one part of the DDMS perspective of Eclipse, which is something you can also do from the command line. But in Eclipse, you've got a little GUI for doing this. You can actually send locations or lat long pairs to the device and make it spoof a location. In fact, you can even give it a list of either KML or GPX, which is a couple different formats for displaying a list of locations, which is KML is Google's format, and you can drive Google Earth, for instance, off of a KML like trip and just have it zoom to different locations in this list of locations. But you can also power the emulator by doing the same thing. We'll be talking about that in just a little bit. But also, if you just needed to show a location, you can start out by using the defaults that DDMS gives you, which is actually, interestingly enough, nearby the 1600 amphitheater, however that's pronounced, based on however I was spelling it, Amphitheater Way, which is near Google's headquarters. So we'll see how that starts out right away. It starts out without a location. Then when we send this location, it will show up on the map as our current location. So the steps we have to go through are: we want to add my location overlay to the maps overlay. And then we want to think about conserving battery life, because whenever you're talking about dealing with the device's location, that's a separate component of the physical device. There's a couple different components, and you always want to think about what you're doing that may fire these components up and make them start working. One is network access. Whenever you access the network over the air, out in the world, not on Wi-Fi, you're using one radio, and when you're using Wi-Fi, you're using another radio, and then when you're using GPS, you're using yet another radio, and each one of those has power needs, and so it's going to drain battery life the more that you're using those, and the more frequently that you're using them, the more frequently the user is going to be mad at your application for using up your battery life. I've learned this the hard way in the past, especially on like a location where apps like Brightkite that really needed up-to-date location a lot. We have to be pretty cognizant of figuring out how to do whatever we can to shut off the location updates whenever we can, to make sure that the battery life is low, or the battery life usage is low. So we're going to go through one little step to make sure that that's to kind of give you an idea of how that best works here, by shutting off the location updates on pause, so that we don't have those hanging around in the background, using up battery life. So let's go back to the add location map activity, where we're going to add this overlay, and I think that we will do this around here. Let me pull that open here in my off-screen code. So the first thing we want to do is add a field here. We're going to add it my location overlay. It's pretty simple. It comes all pretty much ready to work. You can import it from COM Google Android Maps. And now that we have that field, we will, inside Setup Views, create one of those. So I'll hit Control on Windows, Command on Mac O, and go to Set Up Views. And now, once we've got the map view, then we can add a My Location overlay created from this constructor, which takes a context and a map view. And then, just like we went through last week on the map view, we want to inside the overlays of the map, we want to add another overlay, and in this case we're adding the My Location overlay, and then we need to invalidate the map view since we've got it all set up so that it will redraw. And let's see, I think that's all we need to do to actually get it to display. But then we also want to, when we map a current address, we are also dealing with the overlays. We get the map view list of overlays right here, and then we add an overlay that we create, the address overlay, but we also want to make sure that the My Location overlay is in there in that case. And now here's the other pieces that I was talking about. Underneath onCreate, I'm going to put in two other lifecycle methods, onResume and onPause. We've already talked about onResume in a previous class, but once again, onResume is called after onCreate and also after a activity that is already displayed and already created is again resumed we're coming back from another activity basically. So we went forward to another activity and then clicked finish somehow or hit the back button. We would come back to this activity, and onCreate would already be called. It wouldn't get called again, but onResume would. So onResume is where you can do things that you want to happen regardless of if the activity has already been run. And in this case, we want to enable My Location on the My Location overlay. And then onPause will be called when we navigate away from this activity, and we want to disable the location on the My Location overlay in that case. And that will, deep down in the innards, we'll see how this works actually in more dealing more explicitly with things like the location manager. But the My Location overlay will deal with the location manager itself deep in there. So this will turn off the location updates at the right places. So let's go see if that gets shown up on the map. Start this over, and when we go to add tasks and we add a location to a task, it will show up on the map, and it will show up with no location overlay. And the reason is that it doesn't have a location. So what we can do is come to the DDMS perspective. You can go to this view right here, or this little button, and say open the DDMS perspective. That should show up for you. And again, we've seen that a couple times. So you get a list of devices, you get access to all the threads that are running, if there are any threads that are running, File Explorer like we looked at, some interesting things like that. We can see that our task manager is running right here, and there's its process ID. But we also get the emulator control, where we can do a little bit of kind of simulating real-life conditions on the emulator. And the thing that we want to do, if you scroll down here to the location controls, here let me just open this up full screen. Location controls will allow us to spoof a location on the emulator. And it already comes pre-filled out with one at this longitude and latitude. So if I click send, that will show up on the device, and we should have, maybe I need to navigate away and come back. Should have a location. For some reason that's not showing up. The reason that none of this is working right now and your instructor is embarrassed is because I forgot to update the manifest one more time.
Oh,
So
that's what you tell us every week.
Yep. So all this was planned. All this was totally planned. Well, why didn't you help me when I needed it? Okay. In any case, there is another permission we need to add to the manifest. And I'm going to copy that in right now. So underneath the internet, we also need to indicate to the user that we want to access their location or their device's location. And there are two different levels that you can get. One is access the course location, which I'm not sure of the actual resolution, but it'll get to like, I don't know, maybe a mile or something like that. I mean, around a mile, probably not exactly a mile, some sort of meter equivalent. 5,000 or some number of meters, I guess. And then fine location will go down to the finest level available, which hopefully is the GPS given location, which should be within, a little bit less than 10 meters, which is pretty accurate. So once these permissions are set up, then, and just to be sure that everything deploys correctly, I'm going to hop out and actually uninstall the application, because I've had problems in the past where I've changed something about the permissions, especially having to do with the maps, and it didn't seem like the application picked those up. So I'm going to uninstall these just to be safe. And then we'll redeploy the application, and we should have our location overlay showing up. So if anybody else gets into this situation, or you're frustrated and something's not working the way you expected, make sure you check your manifest. Okay, starting from scratch, visit Google, add location to task. Look at this. Do you see this up here? Wish I had some sort of pointer. Where my mouse is now, I've got an indicator that I'm getting GPS, or I'm getting some sort of location data. That's the little indicator guy right here in the top, and there is the My Location overlay. And if I go to 1600 Amphitheater, in Mountain View, and that will zoom into that location, and we'll see that we're fairly close, in fact spot on with that same address. And that's the inside the DDMS perspective. One more time, that's the lat long that is defaulted inside of there, which is Google headquarters. Okay, so to sum up, if you don't see your location, you need to add those things to your manifest.
So, Tony, somebody actually asked why we need to add both the fine and the course. If you just specified fine, would you get the fine, and you wouldn't get the course?
Yeah, I just added them to show the examples. If you specified fine, you would get. Actually, that's a good question. Does it? I mean, I assume it would give you course as well, but I'm not sure. Like if fine is just GPS and course is Wi-Fi triangulation or something like that, or a cell tower triangulation or Wi-Fi. I don't know. I guess, I mean, if you're going to ask for fine, it's not a big deal to ask for course as well, so you can just throw them both in there. And maybe that's a topic for the forum. We can discuss whether or not course comes along with fine or not.
Cool.
Okay. And also, there's still some little wonkiness with the emulator. You can see my location overlay went away. Because, and even if I zoom out, I won't see it anymore because the emulator lost the location, which happens sometimes too. So you just may have to go spam that location send button inside the DDMS sometimes. But in any case, I'll add this to our list of tasks. So we have a location, or a task with a location, and then I'll add one without. So I'll get us back to the state we were at before I forgot to add those essential manifest pieces. And now, are there any questions about what we just did?
Let me see. Nothing specifically about what we just did. We do have a couple of other questions related to maps that I'm saving for the end. Ruth?
Just really briefly, access fine location is equal to the GPS granularity. Is that right? I think.
Well, I think it's generalized a bit, so it doesn't have to be GPS. Maybe there's some other way of getting fine location that we come up with in the future. I don't know, but yeah, it's pretty much it gives you GPS level, and I think course level at this point gives you either Wi-Fi or cell tower triangulation, which is still fairly accurate. You know, it may get within, I don't know, 200 meters or so on the cell tower, and Wi-Fi too. Wi-Fi may even be better than that. But yeah, I think that's how it breaks down.
Okay. So do we need to do we need the enable my location call inside map current address after all, or can we remove it again? Somebody was asking that.
Good question. Let's just move on, and we can call that. We can figure that out later. I'm not sure. Basically, they're asking if I need to add this line. I'll get rid of it for the next time we run it. Sorry, go ahead with the questions.
And then, why no kind of security exception before manifest was updated for GPS? They were surprised that there wasn't some kind of security exception to let you know that you hadn't updated the manifest, I believe.
That sounds like a good bug to file with Google. If I'm understanding the question right, you're asking why I didn't get some sort of an exception or something when I tried to access location, but I didn't specify the permission. Yeah. Well, I think that it's their policy to just let those fail silently, because otherwise, I don't know, you could get in a situation where you have a confusing error message, although it would really help the development effort. So maybe, I don't know, there's a way they could help out developers in my position more often, the guys that forget to update the manifest.